Now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, welcome, and thank you for attending today's webinar about optimizing utility operations through the use of the AWWA Utility Management Standards. Today's webinar is the first in a series of 3 webinars we have planned about the utility management standards, which were developed to help utilities to foster excellence through continuous improvement and evaluation. These voluntary standards and associated guidebooks allow utilities to identify gaps in their management systems and to improve systems before they fail. Case studies have shown that use of the standards can help utilities save energy, improve efficiency, prevent water loss, and improve water quality. They have also been used successfully to justify investments and secure funding. Today's webinar focuses on the G100 standard, water treatment plant operations and management. We also have 2 more webinars planned in the coming months. On March 29th, we have a webinar on distribution systems operation and management, the G200 standard. And on May 2nd, we'll focus on G300 for source water protection. So today we have 2 presenters. Evan Naminsky will give an introduction and overview of the utility management standards, and then Gerard Yates will provide the details about the G100 standard and guidebook for water treatment plant operations and management. As we go through today's webinar, if you think of any questions you'd like to ask, please just go ahead and type those in at any time into the questions panel on your monitor. And so our first speaker is Evan Naminsky. Many of you know Eva as a longtime member of ASBA. She's worked for the Utah Department of Environmental Quality for 26 years, where she provides technical assistance to water treatment plant managers and operators and conducts research projects on water quality and treatment. She's also an adjunct associate professor at Utah State University. Eva received her master's degrees from Warsaw Technical University and the University of Notre Dame, and her PhD from Utah State. Among Eva's many accomplishments, she has organized the Utah Water Quality Alliance that created a venue for cooperation between the utilities and direct application of project findings to improve water treatment plant performance. And she's directed several studies on treatability of emerging contaminants and feasibility of new treatment technologies. She's also conducted research projects for the EPA, the Water Research Foundation, and published a number of articles. In 1997, she received the AWOD Water Quality Division Best Paper Award. In 1999, the Utah Governor's Medal in Science and Technology, and in 2010, the AWWA Fuller Award. So with that, I will hand it over to Eva.
Thank you all, and thank you for the introduction, and thank you for attending. As Dave said, this webinar is dedicated to state agency staff who are seeking tools and materials to effectively help water utilities to optimize their operations. There is a series of voluntary standards that have been developed by AWWA volunteers in several areas of utility operations, starting from source water protection, treatment, distribution maintenance, all the way to customer service, emergency preparedness, water conservation, and others. These standards, as I said, are voluntary, but they serve utilities in conducting self-assessments of their selected operations, and they help pointing out priorities leading to better operations. The reason we invited you to this webinar and are thankful for your attendance is that we believe that regulatory agencies could provide valuable guidance to utilities in applying those standards by promoting their use and helping out with using them. I'm trying to advance my screen. There are several reasons why utilities would want to optimize their operations. The reasons listed on this slide are becoming increasingly important as utilities face having to comply with more and more stringent regulations, with tightening budgets, with little technical assistance that would not require extensive investments, and with increasing oversight from the customers regarding efficiency, effectiveness, budget, security, environment, and public health. We all have to do more with less. Yet, any investment of those time and money, resources into optimization of utility operations brings huge benefits. It's a good investment. Excellence in operations and continuing improvements are visible to the public and to the officials, and they bring confidence not only to utility managers, but also to customers and the oversight agencies. Optimization efforts provide continuity in seeking improvement and measurement tools for evaluating the improvements and in prioritizing elements of this continuing improvement. There are several common threads that were linked by a committee within AWWA named Utility Quality Management Committee. And this committee is composed of state and provincial regulators, utility operators and managers, consulting engineers, and scientists. They all worked for over a decade now to bring together a group of experts and to give them guidance on how to construct standards that would serve in several areas of utility functioning. These groups of authors of individual standards, they're selected from utilities, consulting engineering firms, state agencies. They're well known in the drinking water industry as highly published and recognized in their respective areas of expertise, and they provided their time and expertise as volunteers in AWWA. All the standards developed so far in various areas of operation are constructed in the same format, guiding the reader through a set of items to be considered in a self-assessment. These elements, these items to be evaluated, are not regulatory, but they're set above existing regulations. For example, they indicate needs to develop standard operating procedures in specific areas, or to conduct periodic checks in those areas. The standards are ANSI certified, and they're reviewed every 5 years. These standards live in a family of well-known AWWA standards, and they're grouped with a designation of a G series standards, just a random designation letter. But they're still little known, little advertised, since they're non-regulatory and not required. 4 of those standards also have guidebooks that help in performing self-assessment. So what links these utility management standards are several things listed on this slide. Other than the same format and non-regulatory set of optimization processes, they're written by the operators for the operators. These standards should be achievable by a well-operated utility without having to undergo any special investments. In other words, a well-run utility of any size should pass a self-assessment against any of the standards with only minor recommendations that help continuing improvements. These standards are not written for the best in class, and that's very important. They should be achieved by a well-operated utility without having made any major investments. A utility that checks its operations against the standards could request another utility or a friendly regulatory agency to perform a peer review of those self-assessments. We have conducted such peer reviews in Utah, and we could report measurable improvement of utilities operations since the self-assessments resulted in measurable goals, activities, and projects leading to better operations and thus better public health protection, above and beyond what's required by existing state and federal regulations. The vision behind having standards that help utilities operate beyond and above the existing regulations is that conformance with utility management standards will enhance public confidence in their operations while demonstrating continuing improvement efforts. This is a big statement, big vision, but we should hope that several utilities could make that statement and prove that they deserve public confidence and they are engaged in continuous improvements. As of now, several water utilities in the U.S. have conducted self-assessments against several of the utility management standards. Some of the comments that were shared with our Utility Quality Management Committee stated that applying these standards to utility operations helps to manage utilities in a way which guarantees peace of mind. That's a big deal. Using the standards in optimizing operations assures continuity in optimization efforts, encourages development of standard operating procedures, and having those SOPs in place allows new, young operators possess knowledge that otherwise would be lost once older and more experienced operators retire. And finally, using a set of standards helps maintain safe performance based on a set of good practices and not just good luck, allowing operators, managers, as well as regulators sleep well at night. So now I want to show you a full list of the utility management standards developed in AWWA. The left-hand side shows drinking water standards, with the first 4, the bold ones, on that list also having individual guidebooks available. The right-hand side shows the standards developed for wastewater utilities, with the last 4 that are written in italics are still in development stage. So now you can see that these standards cover most, if not all, utility operations. We're hoping that by helping you being familiar with the utility management standards, you would be willing to promote their use in the utilities of your state, and you would be willing to assist your utilities in using the standards and performing individual self-assessments. We're dedicating this webinar to the first of the standards in this list on the slide in the G-Series family, the Water Treatment Plant Operations and Management Standards, also known as G100 standard. Gerard Yates, the Water Quality and Treatment Manager at Central Utah Water Conservancy District, was living and breathing this treatment standard while helping his 3 treatment plants and also serving as a peer reviewer for 12 plants in Utah. So here is back to Dave, and there is Gerard guiding you through the elements of the treatment standards and helping you better understand the extent of questions that help in optimization of treatment processes, operations, and management. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eva. Our next speaker is Gerard Yates. He's the Water Quality Treatment Department Manager for Central Utah Water Conservancy District. He oversees water quality, wells, finished water distribution, laboratories, and the operations and maintenance of the district's surface water treatment plants. He has a bachelor's degree from Brigham Young University and has worked for the Water District for 30 years. He regularly participates in water research projects, watershed protection, and operator certification training and education. So Gerard, take it away.
Thank you. So I'll be providing a utility perspective of using the standard and guidebook. It's kind of a, I'll be sharing the success story of how we use the standard to better protect water quality. Now, right off the bat, this means that you're going to ask utilities to go above and beyond. And when you ask them to go above and beyond, the first question is, well, why should I put in the extra effort? And as soon as I get this to advance, I'll continue.
Gerard, try the arrow buttons at the bottom there.
That's what I'm doing.
No, with your mouse. Actually click on the window.
Oh, I see it. Yep. Thank you.
Yep, now your keyboard should work.
Great, thank you. So going above and beyond, we're all aware of a lot of the different things that are have been going on in the news media. But when something happens that the news media grabs onto a water quality issue, all utilities are impacted whenever the media finds a water quality story to tell. Unfortunately, the story is rarely about the most safe drinking water in the world that makes the headlines. Regular news stories seem intent to attack utilities and question the safe drinking water which in fact diminishes the public trust. There are a lot of different aspects, including, lead and copper is one, but a lot of different stories have been in the news on water quality lately. So why go above and beyond? Well, and why use the G100? It's to minimize risk, improve and provide a positive public perception. And in the world today, it's difficult for utility to say, well, I'm meeting all the minimum requirements, or I'm doing the least I am required to do. So the great thing about this is I was looking at the program. It's already there. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel. It's exactly what we were looking for. So what is the G100 standard? Well, I'll just go through. It's broad-based, comprehensive evaluation optimization tool based on industry standards. Eva mentioned some of this. Based on best management practices for water treatment, written by treatment plant people who looked and said, okay, what are the best management practices for optimization of a treatment plant? And we went through this and decided it's a great tool to make sure that we're not missing something. One of the things I'd like to do is, well, the goal is for what I'm trying to do is to provide a better understanding of the AWWA Utility Management Standard. Our utility experience, what we determined was it was a very valuable tool to reliably produce high quality water using the best management practice. The standard's easy to use, it's straightforward, it kind of goes step by step so that you can evaluate opportunities for improvement in your water treatment plant. It provides an everyday tool for plant optimization. As I go through, I'm going to reference both documents. There is the AWWA G100 standard, and then there is the operational guide. And we used both, the standard written in 2005, the guidebook 2011. What's the difference? Well, the standard spells it out, and the operational guide gives you a how-to or an evaluation and improvement tool. So the concept of the operational guide was it's a guidance tool. Our experience was it was extremely valuable with additional information and insight, it was especially good for as a self-evaluation tool, as it is very comprehensive. It's laid out with 4 major categories. As you go through, you look and say, okay, the plant shall satisfactorily meet the regulatory requirements. And the second one, operational practices. These are like limitations and resources. And the third one, property management. This is maintenance, inspection needs, those type of things. The fourth category, water quality management. This is looking at performance goals and monitoring. And the standards are laid out as a process where you set your goals, you measure performance, you implement change, and then how do you maintain that? As Eva mentioned, this was introduced to our AWWA section, and the way we did this, we took trainers, we had someone from each of the utilities, and we wanted to have a peer review process, and so each of the participating utilities, they sent one person to kind of be trained so they could be a peer reviewer, and then the utilities agreed that they were going to go through and do the self-assessment using the standard in the guidebook, and then at the end, after they were done, they had the opportunity to submit it to their peers for review. And I think it's important that the peer review was kind of an important part, because each utility knew that their peers were going to be looking at their work, and so I think it helped put some extra effort into it, but also having that extra pair of eyes looking and making recommendations, and it was really good as utilities. We worked together on this, and we started by saying, okay, we might find areas to improve, but we have nothing to hide, so let's go do this. And we said, let's do it. For our utility, I'll just give you a little background, who we are, and we're very similar to other utilities. Not everyone likes change. We have a few differences than others. We basically, what we do is we develop and store water on the east side of the state, and we bring the water through a series of reservoirs, pipelines, dams, diversions, and we store the snow melt, and then we bring it to the Wasatch Front where all the people live, and then we deliver the water. So going along, we collect and store the snow melt water. We then divert that water through pipelines and diversion dams, and I'm basically just bringing you along from the east side of the state to the center part of the state. Here's a high mountain storage reservoir. Water going over. This is a different dam with the water goes cascading. We have large conveyance pipelines. This pipeline is drilled 8 miles through a mountain to deliver the raw water over to the Front Range. Here's another reservoir, lower Mountain Valley Reservoir. The water goes down from here and is moving down into the next reservoir, and then it leaves that reservoir. We deliver the water down out of that reservoir and down a river to another diversion dam. And at this particular diversion dam, we can divert water through a 10-foot diameter pipeline, and that diverts water to 5 different treatment plants. And here's one of our treatment plants. It's the Don A. Christiansen Regional Treatment Plant, 100 MGD plant. We have pre-ozone, conventional flux sed, deep bed filters, and free chlorine. A couple other plants, Ashley Valley plant, different water source, 20 MGD, conventional treatment plant, and deep bed filters. This plant does not have ozone. We use enhanced coagulation. And the Duchesne plant, 10 MGD plant, direct filtration, pump out of the lake to the treatment plant, use ozone for disinfection byproducts. Each of these plants have their own unique challenges. Here's a list of some of the challenges, just so you can see we are not unlike other utilities. We have challenges, and meeting all the rules and regulations takes some effort and work. But we have the same operational goals at each plant. They do have different chemicals, different sources. 2 are conventional, 1 is direct. 2 have ozone. They have deep beds. They have different underdrains, different ways of handling solids, different water quality changes, and different personalities and skill set of the employees. And in generally, we're doing quite well. All 3 treatment plants are Partnership for Safe Water water treatment plants. The Don A. Christiansen plant was only the 2nd plant in the nation to receive the Partnership Phase 4 for optimization of the treatment plant processes for turbidity removal. And here's an example looking at the turbidity. And you can see our improvements over time. This is looking at the worst reading for each day over this period of time, and you can see the turbidity EPA regulatory is 0.3. This is looking at this is not an average. This is the worst spike, and you can see over time we rarely have a spike, any reading above 0.05. So when I asked them to look at an opportunity to improve, all of the plant managers, I have to say that some of them said, well, improve on what? Our finished water turbidities are great, and they were not necessarily all excited, and they're correct. But I asked a few questions. I said, turbidity is great, but how about lead and copper, disinfection byproducts? How about operating in a cost-effective manner? Is there anything missing? There are standards out there that you may not even know about. And so let's go through and see if there's something that you could possibly improve on. If not, I'll give you all a pat on the back, and we'll celebrate. So we talked about some good business reasons for change. We pulled everyone together, and here are some of the reasons why we came up with some good business reasons for us to go through this process and do a self-evaluation. And all of the staff agreed that these were good reasons, and they said we'll put some effort into it. We met together, provided both the AWWA G100, both the guide and the standard to each plant. And then we developed an audit checklist where we're able to go through and sit around and go through this together. And just like we just asked the question with compliance and regulatory requirements, are we meeting all the regulations? And or are we just trying to do the minimum amount? And you know, we at first didn't involve everyone. We realized we needed to, and then we pulled everyone in, got everyone on board. It was better received that way, and a lot of good things came out of that. Here's an example of our audit form, and you're going to get out, utilities will get out of this exactly what they put into it. The audit goes through and says, okay, ask these questions, and we put this together and wanted to use it as a living document when we were done, so we kind of put it in an HTML format so that we could use it as a training tool and make change over time. And we did the initial audit, and we found on compliance with regulatory requirements, okay, we checked and said, well, we're 100% successful with regulatory compliance. And we're a wholesaler, and the first thing is all three treatment plants said we have no problem with meeting any regulation. But I asked them, okay, well, how about our customers? Are any of our customers struggling to meet DVPs? And the answer was, well, yes, some of their numbers are higher, and they're concerned about it, which means they're looking to us to fix it. And so we just talked through it, and initially on many of these things we were doing well, and some we were at 90%, and some we felt we were at 70%. And some of the things that came out of it under making improvements, we found some that were really valuable. One was looking at our disinfection byproducts, and you can see that we made some real efforts, and some of it took time. You can see that when we added ozone, you can see that our trihalomethanes dropped considerably, and that wasn't something we were able to do overnight, but it took some planning. So Here's an example of another one of our audits. We looked and said, how are we doing with safety? Well, we're doing quite well. These are the things we do. Here's a few areas that we could improve on. Then we looked at customer care, and because we're a wholesaler, we mostly get calls from customer agencies. But we realized there's a lot more we could do. Even as a wholesaler, we've learned that as long as I'll take taste and odor for example. If our threshold odor number at the treatment plant is 2.5 or less, our customer agencies are not going to receive a lot of customer complaints. But if it hits 3.0, they start getting calls. So we, as part of our customer care, we put together a program where we check with our agencies and find out, we track that and communicate with them to see if they're having customer complaints. And we set a goal and established a goal that when we reach 2.5 on the threshold odor number, we're going to do something. We're going to act. And with that, our customers are much happier, and we're able to, we know what to do. It's written policy. This is what we're going to do when this happens. We didn't have that in place before. Redundancy. We went through and looked at redundancy and said, okay, let's evaluate our single sources of failure. And we found a few that we said we better put some spare parts on the shelf. And we recognized one of the things we wanted to do was have a good spare parts inventory system that we didn't have, and we've put that in. We've now found a software, and we have a spare parts inventory system for the whole company and it's much more efficient. So another thing we looked at the production limitations, and we looked at where does our production limitations hit, and it goes back to for our treatment plants, depends on our unit filter run volumes. And you can see that we had in 2013 we had an algal event in the lake that significantly limited our ability to produce water, and we needed to produce 25 gallons per minute per square foot. We could only produce 4,500, which meant we couldn't meet the demands of our customer agencies. And so we recognized that was a limitation, and we put some things into place and actually did some work in the watershed in the operation of the reservoirs that we've been able to, we haven't seen that happen again. And it's something that we did have control over. Some other things we did with that, I'll just back up. That with our filter performance, another thing I wanted to share was we looked at our filters and we did what we call filter forensics, where each month a different operator is assigned at each plant to look at the worst filter run of any given day, and then look at that, and we call it filter forensic, and evaluate what happened with that filter run and what can we do to improve. And we have, and that's a discussion that we have. So moving on, I mentioned that this is a comprehensive program. It goes through a lot of things that many utilities, water treatment plants might not have their arms around all of this in all of these different areas, and it breaks it down. Writing the SOPs was an important one for us. I assigned the plant managers to provide 2 standard operating procedures each month, and they decided, well, let's get this done. I'll send you one a week, and they assigned different plant personnel to write the SOP, and then they reviewed it, and then they sent it to me. Why is a standard operating procedure so important? Well, it allows you to, the operator, to confidently know what to do. It provides for succession planning. It's a training tool. It gives them all of the information at their fingertips, especially in the middle of the night when something goes wrong. They have a place to go to make sure what they're doing is right. We didn't have one of the things we didn't have was a good program to check each load of chemicals. It was just an area we were short in, and we went through and said, okay, what is the quality assurance program that we should have that we don't have? And we worked on that, and we feel like we have a good program across our organization. We identified that on our emergency preparedness, you may have noticed that we bring all this water across the state and then down through these reservoirs, and then it comes down one single river, and then we divert that river. Well, we identified there's vulnerabilities in that river, and for us, because it's in the mountains and there's a lot of snowstorms and the roads get icy and a lot of heavy traffic, it's not when there's a spill event or when a truck is going to go in the river, it's how many times is that going to happen in a given year. And so we wanted to develop a better emergency response plan, early warning system, and remember this is an early warning system for 5 treatment plants. Energy management, I could talk about that. We made some significant improvements in evaluating our energy use, and that's made us much more efficient. We now have procedures in place where we don't start up all, when the plant starts to ramp up in the summertime as we start to produce more water. If we don't turn on all of the flocculators, for example, at one time, we don't get a demand charge of $1,500. If we space those out in banks every 15 minutes, we can save a lot of money. When we turn on pumps motors, 1,000 horsepower motor costs about $2,500 just demand to turn it on. So having an energy management program in place has made us much more efficient and helps the operators make cost-effective decisions. That's just sharing a few. There's so much I could share. I'm just picking a few that were important. Here's another from the audit. I can go through and say there's energy management design review. One of the things as we look, we're always doing a lot of construction, and we just put in we're always putting in new pipelines and going to new customers with the growth. And one of the challenges we had recently is we were putting in a 60-inch finished water pipeline, and we had experience before where we didn't have language in the contract documents, and the contractor allowed mud and everything to get in while they were putting it in the trench. Well, we knew that in putting a 60-inch finished water pipe that we could never get velocities high enough to flush that out. So we put in the construction documents that they had to protect and not allow any water or mud to get in there, and if they did, they would have to pressure wash the whole pipe. That gave incentive to the contractor to protect it. We provided all. We looked and said, okay, we have these as-builts, but it's not available to the operators. Let's put it on a tablet. Let's make it searchable, and we've done a lot better in just getting the information available to the operators. Just a couple examples. So one of the things that one of the new managers, I had a new plant manager, and he was particularly happy to have this as a tool. He said, as a new manager, it helped him identify areas that he didn't even know were of concern. There were gaps in his knowledge, of course, as a new manager coming in, and he just said, here's some of the pieces that are examples of the chemical QC, the operating goals, and all these inspection frequency and system failure. all these things were so helpful for him in developing a program. He said they started with the audit, and they were checking the boxes yes, and then they decided they realized they had a lot of work to do, but it was okay. They also had time. And he said he thought they were doing well until they looked and said, here's the industry standards, and they're standards of things that we should be doing that we're not. And he says, now we have real goals, we have confidence that we're not missing something. It's been a team builder because they did this together, and he says as a result he sleeps a lot better at night knowing that he's not missing something. One of the things we did is we took our time and said there's not a rush. We'll have some fun. We worked together. We set a time every Thursday morning for an hour. We're going to meet together and go through and evaluate and train. And that's worked well for us. Another example, these are design, goes through and says, okay, here's the design, here's the records, energy management, treated water storage, storage capacity. Do you have enough? We have developed an in-house storage policy on this is how much finished water storage we have, and this is its purpose, and this is and as we grow that we are going to also add storage because that's our commitment to finished water quality. We established operational goals, and going through this program it just says, has the plan established these goals for water quality? Are these goals monitored? And if they aren't, and if you don't meet your goals, well, what do you do? And how is your customer satisfaction? And are they realistic? Are your goals and what you're doing realistic? And do we produce the water quality that we desire? Just go through and ask the questions. One of the things we did, we put together from this from the standard operating procedures, writing the SOPs, it goes through and asks these same questions, and from that we put together an operations manual that is the guide that our operators use in making decisions, because 75% of the time our operators are there by themselves, and it's become a real valuable tool to them. One of the things that one of the questions asked is, do you have unattended operations at a treatment plant? Well, our two smaller treatment plants are not operated 24 hours a day. There's only someone there 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the rest of the time, the computer system is monitoring and sending information. There's an on-call person, and they have a laptop and all of that. But this goes through, it says, if you are going to have unattended operations, you should include the following. And we went through, and this was very helpful to make sure, and we found a few things that we needed to improve on, because if the plant is unmanned 16 hours a day and something goes wrong and you're not there to catch it, the computer system needs to catch it, and there needs to be some fail-safes in place, and we were able to put in some clamps so that even if it didn't call during that period of time, that the plant cannot make changes outside that small range. And we went through and said, okay, we validated and we made sure it worked. We practiced, we did drills, and we developed a standard operating procedure that says this is what we do to protect water quality even though we're unmanned 16 hours a day. Here's our protocol and what we did. And we did some additional programming and put in a fail-safe, and the plant can automatically shut itself down, and as a result we feel much more confident that we're doing everything we should do. This is another example of an audit checklist, and another utility that went through and said using the operational guide, they said, here are some things that we're going to evaluate and do, and here's our instructions, and this is just an example of taking action. So, summary. Well, the standards provide this operational tool. In our experience, it's been an extremely valuable tool. It's using the best practices. Using that, we went through and the self-evaluation, it was right at our fingertips. We didn't have to hire an engineering firm, or it's a very cost-effective self-evaluation. It's comprehensive. It helped us optimize and prevent plant upsets and preserve water quality. It has you look at where are you and where should you be, and helps you with financial planning and make sure that you have the ability to meet the future needs. It addresses critical knowledge loss and provides for succession planning. Through this, we are better able to train and retain qualified employees. We've mitigated risk, and we have a program to better reach out to the public and our stakeholders and share with them the true value of water and what it costs. We've enhanced customer care, and we've taken our staff from laggards to leaders. So, recommendations for us, the peer review process was very good. Some utilities may choose to just do a self-evaluation and end there using this tool. But others might organize, and with other utilities, it might be great to organize with state agencies and with include an engineer that might do a sanitary survey and say, here are the things we're doing. But I like the peer review process, to have that extra set of eyes. And we weren't enforcing a rule; it was all voluntary. But we made some. It helps you make some real operational improvements. You can use this, and you can use this for us. It's a board of directors, and we've used it to say, here are the standards. This is what's expected in our industry. And we need these resources, these additional resources, so that we can meet the expectations of our industry. And it's also very good to just recognize and celebrate success. And understand that not everyone's excited for change all the time, but working together has provided a means for us to make some real improvements. So, here, I have just a few minutes where I'm going to move on. I was going to end here if I was too long-winded, but I wanted to share with you, I'm going to go past this before we get to questions, and I'm going to give you a real-life example of how this program made all the difference. So I showed you this picture of a diversion dam that then diverts water through a 10-foot diameter pipeline, or this that goes to 5 treatment plants. Well, I mentioned also that we looked through and evaluated our early warning system, and we recognized that we needed to make some enhancements and be better prepared to respond to a spill event. So here it is, Saturday morning, 10 a.m. a year ago. This truck rolls. It's carrying crude oil down the canyon right next to the river, 3/4 of a mile above our diversion dam. And what does it do? It spills crude oil into the river. And the way the crude oil actually got in was these storm drains along this highway drain right into the river. Not the best plan, but that's the way it is. And that's how most of the oil actually went right into the storm drain, and put over 1,000 gallons of crude oil right above our intake. And you can see that some of it did go over the top, but most of it went right out into the river and hit the river. Now, this oil floated on down and was going right towards our intake. And so what was interesting that happened here, I'll show you a little bit of the background. We had recognized that we had, you can see this yellow oil, the boom that's going to collect the oil as it's coming down. We had purchased those. We had them in that building, but we recognized that we had never practiced deploying those booms. we recognized that a number of things that we should do. And so one of the things we did is we identified that it's one thing to purchase this emergency equipment. It's another one to actually know how to deploy it. And we recognized as we practiced that we didn't even have the eye bolts to hook this in. We were holding it by hand, and so we made some. We practiced and we put an SOP together, and we had a game plan for when a spill happened, and we gained some confidence that we knew what to do when it did happen. In addition, we depend on emergency response people in the canyon, the highway patrol, the county sheriffs, to call us when there's a spill event. And we recognize that we have a detection system at the intake dam. It's quite a very good water quality monitoring equipment right here at the diversion dam. Well, that doesn't help us very well if if we don't get an advanced call, because all that means is you've now let poor water quality get into your pipeline. So we then said, okay, we need to enhance this, and so what we do is we meet with all of the emergency response agencies. We put together a one phone call to one number, and that takes care of all water emergencies. We had the emergency response people. Each year we bring them to the water treatment plant, then we take them up and we have them understand the critical nature of this. How over half the state's population receives their drinking water through this one location, and that we need advance warning, and when they get a call of a spill event, that we need their emergency response to call this one number. Well, what happened that was so important is with that training, the first officer on site, he called dispatch called us, and 3/4 of a mile, we had about an hour and a half travel time. Well, within 15 minutes of the truck spilling, we had the phone call. We remotely closed the intake gates, and we were able to close the gates to the diversion and start backing the water up and filling up this diversion dam, which gave us even more time to get operators on site and to deploy the boom. Well, as a result, we were able to catch all of the oil as it floated down the river. We had a plan in place that said in a spill event, this all happened the summer before the spill event happened. And we had this plan that this is what we do. We protect life, we contain the spill, we protect the water facilities, we communicate to our stakeholders, we coordinate our efforts, we repair the damage, we have a timely cleanup and spill, we do the water quality testing, and then we restore the flow back to the treatment plants. Well, in this case, everything that was under our control worked really well. As a matter of fact, all the agencies pulled together. The only problem we had was two little things. One, the EPA came in with this spill event and hired a cleanup company, and the cleanup company felt like this would be a several-month cleanup. Well, we have treatment plants offline with the river shut down, and this can't take several months. We had water quality testing in place, and we knew what we wanted to monitor for, and as soon as our plan was they're going to clean up the spill. Once it's cleaned up, we're going to test. When we see no detect, we can then restore flow. Well, because they were dragging their feet and wanting to milk this a little bit, we couldn't restore the flow, so everything worked good, and then we had to yell a little bit to get that moving along, and it worked well. EPA responded to our concerns, and they responded to the cleanup company and the state, and everyone worked together well. They actually, you can see them here pulling the crude oil out, and the crude oil here in Utah is very waxy, and fortunately it floats to the top as it gets cold. they actually pulled out 5 large dumpsters, the kind that go on big trucks, of just crude oil as they went through this cleanup process. But because of our quick actions, we were able to contain all of the oil, and you can see here they are putting it in the dumpster. And our plan, once they got everything cleaned up, we were then going to pull our samples. When our test results showed 0, we knew we could then send water back to our customers. And our customer agencies, who we deliver this raw water to, they're saying, okay, we're not sure. You have to reassure us that of what the water quality is going to be like. So we went through our plan, and they were very comfortable and said, wow, you guys have done a great job in preparing for this. And so here's kind of a summary. By Friday, December 4th, it was substantially, the cleanup was substantially complete. I talked to the EPA person in charge, and I said, well, how much of this are we expected to get out before we start delivering water? And she said, normally in a spill in a river like this, if you can collect 20% of it, you're doing good. The other is going to go down. And she said, but you've contained at least, you've contained it because of your quick actions and knowing what to do. Yeah, I think we will actually remove 98% of all of this oil spill. As a result, we were able to, there was only a water loss for 6 days. It was quite a bit of water. And then we left the containment booms in place and continued, and this was the EPA's response to us was, she said, I respond to many spill events and I provide a lot of training, and this spill event will now be used in all future training as the standard for how to prepare and respond. And that really goes back to just having a guide to go through and start at sitting down together and asking questions and putting together a program to protect and preserve water quality. And so that's what using the standards, that was a real-life example of one way using the standards helped us be better prepared to minimize risk, to know what to do, to have a program in place, to utilize a comprehensive tool to protect and preserve water quality, and as a result, you'll hear me say, I sleep better at night. With that, any questions?
All right. Well, thank you, Gerard. That was excellent, and yeah, very good example there of how the standards helped with the emergency preparedness. And thank you, Gerard and Eva, for giving up your lunch hour today. And there are a couple questions we can go over, and if anyone else has a question, you can go ahead and type it in to the questions panel, and we'll address that. So one question, Eva, I guess this is for you. What would you say is the best way for state agencies to use these standards? Should they be cited in regulations?
It's very important to recognize that those standards are above and beyond regulations. So we're not encouraging state agencies to tightening or making regulations more stringent, because that provides a line where utilities are afraid of using the standards, because failure to meet the standards means failing new regulations, and it would be difficult to make them as popular as we would like them to be. We're trying to use them, as Gerard said, as operational tools. So I would see the need for the standards within those sections of state agencies that are set up to provide technical assistance. And I talked with many state representatives who said that technical assistance requires knowledge of treatment that is above regulations. It requires some technical skills. It requires some tools and some real down-to-earth questions. Examples that Gerard was using are good examples of what type of questions should be answered. So the technical staff of state agencies who are willing to provide technical assistance to water utilities can make a huge difference by encouraging them, by letting them know, first of all, letting them know that those standards exist. Any utility member of AWWA has those standards delivered to them along with other standards for free. So they're sitting on their shelves, and utilities don't know, utility managers and operators don't know that those standards exist. So we can encourage them in saying, this is really a good set of tools that would guide you into how improve your operations, how to optimize your operations, and it can be taken as one standard at a time. The treatment standard is really a powerful standard, and it has a lot in it. But as I said, those questions are not set up for the best in group, the best treatment plants in the country. And it's just a check of whether operations are performed in the right way, whether the logistics are there. And if the state employees could guide utilities and just point them to the standards and hold their hand while working through the self-assessment, that would be hugely beneficial to the industry.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question, I guess, yeah, this is for either one of you. Question is, the peer reviews sound like a great idea. If regulatory staff are part of the peer review team, do any of these visits end up having regulatory repercussions?
Eva, speak from your side, and I'll tell you from the utility side.
Okay. The answer is absolutely no. No, we are trying to work together. We're trying to believe that the more utilities can do, the less the state agencies will have to do enforcing regulations. The more proactive utilities are dealing with their operations, the more compliance successes we have and less problems on state agencies' time and effort. So no, they're not intended as regulations, and the language used in those standards is never that a utility will have to do something that is written in the standards. All optimization processes that are not regulated, and it's important to send that message. Utilities are afraid of talking to the states because they're afraid that any language that comes from a state agency may become a regulatory language in nature. So it's very important to say that this is a technical assistance and a voluntary engagement.
And I agree, and from a utilities perspective, that's the way it was approached here. And the Division of Drinking Water does a really good job when they come in. They say they offer assistance, and they oftentimes will say, look, we understand that you know more about running a water treatment plant than we do, and we're a resource to help, but we also want to participate and work with you because we'll learn as we go, and that reassures the utility that the state is there to help and assist, and not just to regulate us.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so that was the two questions that we had. We will make these presentations available to you, I guess, through the ASDWA members website. And that's it for our webinar today. So as a reminder, we do have two other webinars coming up in the future. One on distribution systems, operation and management. That's on March 29th. And then we have one on source water protection on May 2nd. And both of those are at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you very much.